been talking to the TUV leader. We asked the DP to come on this morning. They have no one available. The TUV have. Their leader is Jim Allister. I began by asking if the world is falling in as the new rules come into effect.
Well, the world for small business is beginning to fall in because this does considerably tighten the noose of the REC border. Until this moment, business-to-business parcels passed as they always did, unfettered from GB to Northern Ireland. And of course, in the 4 years since the arrangements of Brexit came into place, it's quite clear there's been no detrimental effect on the European Union single market by the passing of parcels. And yet today, from this moment, any business-to-business parcel is going to have to go through the EU customs regime. And if it's at risk, and of course the presumption in all these things is that everything's at risk of passing into the EU, and if you're bringing goods for a manufacturing industry, it's hard to say where the ultimate good will end up. So the presumption is at risk of going into the EU. Therefore, full-blown compliance with EU customs and data requirements and reporting back and the paying of duty on those items. Now, what might be in those parcels? Well, a small engineering firm, for example, it doesn't bring its goods in by pallet load or anything else. It often brings them in by parcels. It might be a parcel of bolts or nuts or something as simple as that, but that is the lifeblood of their supply. Now all of that is going to be subject to EU tariffs and EU customs checks. And once that happens, two things are consequential. First of all, added cost, but secondly, and very significantly, many GB companies, as has happened in other sectors, will simply say, can't be bothered with this. Northern Ireland market's relatively small, we're just going to stop supplying. So a further imposition on our industry.
There are a number of ways of looking at this. One is this is a highly symbolic day, because for those people who claim that the REC border didn't exist or claim that it's not there, there are full international customs declarations now needed in some instances for businesses sending parcels from one part of the UK to Northern Ireland, which is in the UK. So that is one perspective. The other perspective is, Jim, the sky hasn't fallen in. The world hasn't stopped. And this is not, people are not kicking and screaming. Unionists and others are not running around unable to order things or get things into Northern Ireland. And all the heat that there's been over the last couple of years, what for?
Well, unions are nationalists. Be the unionists or nationalists, people are experiencing difficulty in getting parcels. You speak to anyone in the craft sector, and they will tell you since the general product safety regulations come in, that they're finding great difficulty getting small supplies, because to make those supplies from GB, you have to have an agent in Northern Ireland or elsewhere in the EU. So many GB companies have simply stopped supplying. But, take my constituency of Northampton. I have a number of small satellite engineering companies who are maybe working to some of the bigger players in the field. They are depending on parcels sending in their bolts, their washers, their nuts. And of course, because Northern Ireland has been integrated for so long with the GB economy, we work to the UK standards. We work to the old imperial standards. When it even comes to the threads on a boat, you won't get those boats with those threads in the EU because they have a different system. So if a GB company, in consequence of having to now fill in reams of paperwork and having to pay, and the recipient having to pay duty on the boats that they received, they'll simply stop supplying. And this is a real issue for many small businesses. And of course, it's also very significant that we're supposed to be part of the United Kingdom, but now to send boats or nuts or any other business parcel from one part of the UK to another, you have to pass through a full international customs border of a foreign entity and be treated as part of that.
And yet you're still part of the United Kingdom, and you don't think you're...